Hey everybody, Ozark Elton here. I want to talk really quick today. Nice little view of a cave there and everything, but I wanted to kind of give a little bit of an upbeat message today, but at the same time, I want to talk about it in a sense of how I see discouragement. I see a lot of discouragement from those of us who are kind of more ethnically and culturally aware as Western people. What's the undeniable, obvious reality of what's happening in Western nations? There is a discouragement on our side, but then there's a frustration from those who, again, now, like I've covered before, are playing whack a mole with all the issues that negatively affect their people. Well, I want to tell you that our people are aware. Our people are much more aware, I think, than we typically give them credit for. They're aware of the disruption in their local culture. They're aware of the disruption to their country. They're aware of how everything that their founding fathers have ever done and said is now being demonized and destroyed. They are aware that they are ethnically tied to their nations, to the founding of those nations, to the building of those nations. They are very aware, and again, in many, many senses. The problem is, so many people are going so hard with the ones who are so much aware of how we're under attack as a people, how we're literally under invasion as a people, the ones speaking up about it, are pushing some of the more hard-line political philosophies and things that are deemed authoritarian. And again, you're using a lot of old world solutions in a new world place, in a new world people. We are the people of the West. We are the pioneers. And you know what? You need to address them as such. Again, people do have their local, more local and regional cultural and ethnic identities. These are the things that are very aware. Throughout the Tea Party, throughout the MAGA movement, people have become much more awakened. They started using the symbols of their ancestors. They started talking about the issues and the history that are facing them. They want to talk about their First Amendment rights, their Second Amendment rights, the sovereign borders that they see being overrun. Oh, believe me, there is plenty of awareness. What we have to do is we have to recognize that the Canadian man is the Canadian. We have to recognize the Southern man as the Southerner, the Western man, the Westerner, the Midwesterner, the Midwestern. We need to look at preserving these local cultures, but at the same time identifying the commonality between the Midwestern man and the Australian man. And specifically, all around the world, our Western nations, culturally and ethnically Western nations that are under attack, and how now openly anything we speak up for as our people is deemed white supremacy, is deemed evil. Anything Western, whether it be the people, the culture, the traditions itself, are now under attack and quite literally under invasion. Those that hate us don't hide this, and we need to use that. Show collages of how you look up anything about our people and how it's deemed negative compared to right next to any other people. I want you to go ahead and Google and look up a term like white pride and see how that's portrayed in Google compared to any other group of people. Put it in a collage, show it, put a nice big fat header at the top of it, and you share that collage all over the place. Because all you need to do, just like we did with the First Amendment, just like we did with the Second Amendment, we have won a lot of victories in courts. Even in this corrupt political system, we've won a lot of victories. And no, I'm not talking about elections. I'm not talking about fixing borders. Yes, I'm very well aware we're very, very past that. The absolute key is ethnic and cultural awareness of our people. That's the only way any of the Western people are surviving from this point. We no longer have homogeneity in any of our lands, but the more vague conservatives and everybody running with the old I don't see color ideology, buying into the false premise that a heritage is something as superficial as skin color that was only used against us to disenfranchise us of our identity. And now they are being forced, since we no longer have homogeneity in our own nations, any sense of it, then there is no nation, there is only the people. So what we have to do is emphasize local culture and local regional cultural and therefore ethnic identities. Sometimes acknowledging culture and using the national and local symbols and the ancestral symbols and telling people that yes, these are your ethnic symbols. You don't have to be afraid or worried about offending anybody else because nobody else is worried about or afraid of offending you when they talk about and speak up for the interest of their people and culture. Our culture is under destruction, much less our ethnic identity. The key to having ethnic awareness among people is perhaps lies in restoration and restoring of the local and regional ethnic cultures. When Germany and the people of West Germany have been so demonized and so indoctrinated to hate themselves from birth, pretty much. One of the things that they have clung to, and instead of a national identity, is local and regional identity. They have they still have parades. They hold local festivals. They celebrate their local cultures. This is not something just to be used in the stead of speaking up on behalf of your people. Instead, this is a gateway to speaking up on behalf of your people. So don't be afraid again to speak up on in this behalf. Don't be afraid to tell people, well, you are ethnically tied to this land, this country. Doesn't matter if again you had an ancestor come here, early in the last century or 400 years ago. Peoples always take a few hundred years to form. In the grand scheme of things, we are a fairly new people, but we are a people nonetheless, and we were formally defined as such. It's on this basis we now have to speak up on behalf of ourselves, our ancestors, and on behalf of our posterity that's going to come after us. Don't have your grandchildren come up to you one day, or your great nieces and great nephews, whoever, or the children in your neighborhood walk up and say, what happened to the Western people and Western nations? How was this allowed to happen? Don't look them in the eye and tell them, well, don't worry, it was happening illegally, but I made sure instead it happened legally. Don't tell them that you were too much of a coward to speak up for your own people. And for goodness sake, look at the people around us who already have these legitimate frustrations and tell them the fact that their frustrations are legitimate. And they have every right to be frustrated. And they have every right to speak up on behalf of their own people. The very problem, the very reason they're allowed to continue to be demonized on behalf of their own people is because they don't speak up for themselves as a people. That's the reason why. Tea Party, MAGA, they never address this. So speak up on that behalf and tell people with their local regions, cultures, wherever they are, that these are the things that we, the Western people of the Western nations, have in common. And it's on this basis we have to speak up for ourselves. This is Ozark Gilman. Y'all have a good one.